Okay, I'm going to need you all in the middle of the room. Are we all here? T, who are we missing? Layla, dang it, Layla. All right, well, I guess we'll get started. So today we are going to talk about editing your documentaries because it is go time. It is crunch time. It is time to edit those documentaries. You have a rough cut due next week. So today we're going to talk about kind of the ways that you can structure that documentary together in such a way that it kind of flows and the pacing is appropriate and it works. So this is kind of similar to some of the stuff that we talked about during the narrative unit when we talked about editing together a good solid story, a beginning, middle, and an end. So we're going to apply that knowledge and build off of it for our documentary project. So that we can have a documentary that works, a documentary that people actually want to watch. All right, so I'm going to erase the whiteboard real quick. Don't complain. It's just a whiteboard. Gosh. I want you to think back to all of the documentaries that we have watched over the course of this project. I want you to get that into your mind. Okay, we watched a lot of documentaries, and they all have different styles and different ways that they were edited and constructed and put together. Okay, so I want you to think about it. Tell me some of the documentaries by name. Tell me some of the names of the documentaries that we have watched this semester. Justin. Undercity. Awesome. Cool. All right, so I'm going to start writing some of these up here. Alex. Yeah. Action Park. Good. Good. Children Full of Life. Yeah, Jeannie. Mash Brothers. Cool. All right. Oh, look who finally decides to show up. Good to see you, Layla. Okay, what's next? Yeah. Good. Okay, good, good. Yeah, Akand. Yes. Good. Eileen? Cool. Yeah, Evan. Good. You see, Evan actually watched that one during spring break while the rest of you were all screwing around. Thank you, Evan. You're awesome. Any others? Yeah, Chase. Chase. I'm sorry. Nate. Gosh. Good. Go ahead, Layla. Okay. Okay, that's a pretty good list. We watched a lot of documentaries. So I want you to have those kind of in the back of your mind. We're going to come back to that because now we're at the point where we need to start structuring and editing your documentaries put together. So what is the best way to do that? How are we going to structure our documentaries? How are you going to compile and put together all of those interviews in such a way that you have a nice documentary that flows, that the pacing works, and everything makes sense, and people actually want to watch it? So I have some suggestions for you. Think back, if you will. Think back, if you will, to back in your younger years when you were a young child, maybe in the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, okay? And you were given writing assignments for English, okay? Maybe you had to do like a 5-sentence essay, like a 5-sentence paragraph. We used to call this the Carden paragraph. Or maybe in your high school years or junior high school years, you had to write a 5-paragraph essay, okay? A documentary can be structured in a very similar way to a 5-paragraph essay. So, for example, let's think of a topic for our documentary here. Give me a topic. Give me a topic. Yeah, Akand. Somebody else, give me a topic. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, freestyle is a really cool place to be, even during lockdown. Okay, so freestyle is a cool place to be. So we're going to start our documentary, okay? We want it to start kind of catchy. We want it to start with a nice hook. So we have what we call the introduction, right? And in a 5-paragraph essay, what do you do in your introduction? Yes. Right. You state your thesis. You introduce your thesis. So in a documentary film, for example, maybe we have like a really nice, catchy intro. There's a nice hook there. It's interesting. People want to watch it. It grabs our attention. And in that documentary introduction, in that hook, it states our thesis. So for example, if our documentary film is about freestyle and how freestyle is a really cool place to be, you're going to watch this documentary film, and in that hook, you're going to be like, yeah, wow, the thesis here, like the thing that you're telling me in this documentary is that freestyle is a cool place to be. That's cool. That's exciting. Okay, so that's your first paragraph. Paragraph 1 of your 5-paragraph essay. Okay, all right. Think back to your 5-paragraph essays. Okay, now, your second paragraph. What is your second paragraph of the 5-paragraph essay? Okay? What is it? What is it? Come on. I know you know this. You can do this. Anyone? Anyone? Yes, Miss Rashid. Very good. Very good. See, she gets it. It's just too bad that you're not going to be here next year because of that whole green screen curse. All right, so the second paragraph of your 5-paragraph essay is the first supporting paragraph of your thesis, right? So you have a nice supporting paragraph that supports what you're saying in your thesis. So if our thesis is freestyle is a really cool place to be, your first supporting paragraph is going to support that thesis. So freestyle is a really cool place to be because you get a lot of really cool technology here at Freestyle. Cool, awesome. All right, so we'll say, oh, cool technology here in our little paragraph here. And we have some cool quotes and some interesting perspectives from the people that we're interviewing, okay? The third paragraph of our 5-paragraph essay in this particular format is going to be what? Yes, Nikki. Thank you. It's going to be our second supporting paragraph, okay? In which we take another idea that supports our thesis and we lump all that together, okay? This is not interview number 1, interview number 2, and so on and so forth, okay? Ideally, when you have talked to the people you've interviewed, you ask them a lot of similar types of questions. So we'll have all the different ideas about how you get cool technology at Freestyle from maybe multiple different perspectives, and we edit that and put all those thoughts together into our first supporting paragraph. And then we have a different topic, right? So for this one, let's say, what's another good idea that supports our thesis of Freestyle being a really great place to be? What's the second supporting paragraph that we can come up with? We do some really cool projects. All right, so we'll have some nice, cool projects, and so here we'll have some nice quotes and some interesting perspectives and sound bites from our interviewees that talked about all the different cool projects that we can do. Again, everything ties back to our thesis, okay? This is standard stuff. You did this back when you did 5-sentence paragraphs, and you did this back when you did 5-paragraph essays. This is the standard format that you can use to apply to your documentary. A documentary film is not that different from a research paper. All right, next paragraph. What's it going to be? Everyone together. Very good, very good. This will be our third supporting paragraph. All right, what is our third supporting paragraph going to be for our Freestyle documentary that says Freestyle is a cool place? Awesome. Okay, the community. We have a great community here at Freestyle. Everyone loves being part of the community. So we'll have a bunch of nice sound bites and little parts of interview clips that talk about how this is a great community. Now, ideally, each one of these supporting paragraphs is going to be about the same size. So when you look at it on your Premiere timeline, you got them all clumped together, okay? They're about the same size. I see a lot of students who will actually color code this. If you can right-clicking is the answer to everything in Adobe. If you right-click on clips in your timeline, you can change the label color, and you could make like all of this paragraph orange, or all of this paragraph pink, or all of this paragraph green, or blue, or purple, or whatever. And that can be a good way to visually tell, are these about the same size? If you've got a really long first supporting paragraph, and like nothing to say here, that's a problem. It's going to feel a little weird. Your pacing is going to be a little off. And you're going to notice that in your documentary. And maybe you're not going to be sure why, but then if you look at the size of these different paragraphs, you'll start to understand. Okay, finally we have our fifth and final paragraph of our documentary. What is it? What is it? What is it? Yes, Zazie. Very good, very good. It is the conclusion in which we restate the thesis. So you have these 5 paragraphs. Now, folks, this is not all that different from what we did with narrative. This is not that different. Think back. Think back to the narrative unit in which we talked about the 3-act structure, right? Are there 3 acts here? Yes. Yes, there are, right? 1, 2, 3. Remember how we talked about the first act and the third act are roughly the same size, and the second act is the meat of your story. The second act is the big part, right? Okay? This still fits into beginning, middle, and end, okay? Now, some of you might have documentaries that work really well in this format. This is a really standard format. Pretty much any documentary can be fit into this format, can be edited in such a way. But there are other ways to edit a sort of documentary. Okay, there are other ways to you don't have to structure it in the 5-paragraph type of format. Okay, some of you, not all of you, but some of you might have a documentary that fits more into a narrative structure. Okay, now we still have the first act, second act, third act, but a narrative structure focuses more on story arc, the character arc. Okay, be thinking about your documentaries. Do any of you have a story that goes and arcs over the course of time, almost linearly? Or is there character growth and development over the course of your story? It doesn't work for every single documentary, but some of you might have a character who has wants and needs here in Act 1, and the character grows and faces some sort of challenge and changes and becomes someone different here by the end of your film. That's more of a narrative structure. Okay? You don't necessarily need the first, second, and third paragraph, supporting paragraphs, supporting a thesis in which you're trying to tell me and inform me something. It's more about moving through the documentary as a journey. I find that more observational style of documentaries lend themselves to the narrative type of documentary structure, the character-driven documentary, instead of the sort of 5-paragraph essay format. So think back to all of the documentaries that we watched. Okay, we watched a lot of different documentaries. Which type of format do they fit into here? And when we talked about film, we've often talked about the sort of spectrum that we have, right? There's a spectrum here in the middle. And on one side, we've got, like documentary, right? Very fact-based, fact-driven, reality-based kind of stuff. And on the other side, we have like your experimental, for example, right? And then somewhere here in the middle, we've got narrative, right? Over here is like mushroom soup, right? Okay? So your 5-paragraph essay documentary is like somewhere over here, right? Okay? Your narrative-driven documentary, your character-driven documentary, is still on this side of the spectrum, but maybe it's more over here between narrative and documentary. Think about all of the documentaries that we've watched. Okay? We watched a lot of documentaries over the course of this particular unit. Okay? Are they character-driven documentaries? Are they 5-paragraph essay documentaries? So let's go through these documentaries. Let's think about them. Okay, I told you to have them kind of in the back of your head. Let's think about them. Where do these documentaries fit in their editing structure, in their style? Okay, what about Undercity? What do you think? Is it character-driven, or is it 5-paragraph essay? Yeah, it is a little bit of both. That's a good point. It is a little bit of both. And a lot of these documentaries are going to share elements from both, and some are more extreme than others. So the Undercity, is it character-driven? Is it 5-paragraph essay? Does the character grow? Does the character change? Do we get to know that character? A little bit. A little bit. But I think it probably lends itself more to the 5-paragraph essay. We have a nice introduction. We have a nice closing conclusion that are of the same size. And then we actually have supporting paragraphs, right? We've got the tunnel, under the train tunnel, right? And then we have the other tunnel with the homeless people, and then we have the bridge, right? So that fits really, really nicely. So I'm going to say that Undercity is a 5-paragraph essay, okay? How about Action Park? Action Park, with the loop-de-loop slide and everything. Action Park, that was a fun one. That was an early one. We watched that way back in the day, okay? Back when we were actually still in class. That's right. Action Park. What do you think? Yeah. Good. Very much a 5-paragraph essay. Very, very much. You saw all how it was compiled together. It had a thesis. It brought us in. It hooked us. And then it had all of the different ideas about what Action Park was. Why did people like to go there? What made it so dangerous? And then in their conclusion, they had a little bit of what's next for Action Park. So very much a 5-paragraph essay. In fact, a textbook 5-paragraph essay. So excellent. Very good. Very good. All right. Children full of life. Children full of life. What do you think? Yeah. I would say, I mean, it still has the 5 paragraphs, right? It has the 3 stories in there. It has the introduction and the thesis, right? The introduction and the conclusion. But it also has the supporting paragraphs. But there is some character growth there, right? Like the students themselves are characters in that film that grow and journey over a linear progression. So it does have elements of both. I think one of the things about Children of Life that is interesting is it fits in both of these formats. And I think sometimes that's some of the problem we have with the film as well. It's a great film and we all really, really liked it. But a lot of you agreed that it was edited in such a way that was kind of a little bit different. They sort of forced it into this box when maybe it didn't necessarily have to be. Okay, so I think it's edited in the 5-paragraph way, but I think the content could have lended itself to a more narrative structure. And they did take these 5 paragraphs and bring it back and tie it up narratively. So there are narrative elements in there. We started with the story of the school on the first day of school. We learned about the student whose father had passed away, right? And by the end of the film, we came back to that. We came back to the children whose parents had passed away, and then we ended on the last day of school. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both, but it does fit actually both requirements. So I'm going to draw a little arrow here, and I'm going to draw a little arrow here. It sits somewhere in the middle of these structures. Okay, Mass Brothers, what do you think? I agree. 5-paragraph essay. How about Ray? Do you remember Ray? I don't remember if you all watched Ray. I think some of us watched it in class. What do you think? Yeah, Ray was weird. Remember Ray, A Life Underwater? Remember it was really pretty, beautiful to look at, but remember we decided the structure was kind of weird and it kind of didn't work and it left us wanting more, right? And I would argue because they didn't really have a structure. This was the problem with Ray. There was no thesis. So it started to work as a character documentary, except we never saw the character grow, progress. We never saw anything happen linearly. So Ray was just sort of lost. This, folks, is why Ray wasn't as effective as it could have been. All right? We could have learned more about Ray as a character. Or we could have developed some sort of structure or idea to latch onto. So as a piece, I think it was kind of structured in a 5-paragraph way, but there wasn't really a thesis. So then it was kind of structured in a character way, but then there wasn't really a story. So Ray just is lost. Ray just didn't really work, and I think that's why. Okay, I think there's some beautiful visuals in there. I think the person Ray is super cool, and I think a good documentary on Ray would be really fascinating. But I think that's the problem with that documentary and why it didn't really grab us the way some of these other ones did, is because it was lacking in some of these structures. Okay, The Last Ice Merchant. We just watched that one recently. The Last Ice Merchant. What do you think? 5-paragraph. I think it's 5-paragraph. But there is some nice story arc going on there about about the character and who he is and how he became the last ice merchant. But mostly, 5-paragraph kind of way. You start to notice that 5-paragraph structure documentaries are oftentimes the ones that have a lot of talking head interviews. When you start seeing more observational styles, that's where you start to see sort of different kinds of character-driven types of documentaries. Citizen 4. Citizen 4, what do you think? I think it's a character-driven documentary. It's more of a narrative. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of these elements, but I think as a whole, there's more of a beginning and a middle and an end. There's more of a narrative structure, the story of how this came to pass. It's linear in its development. Hotel 22. This is one of my favorites. This is the one about our local bus. Remember our local bus that drives around in the night and all the homeless people get on there to stay warm, to survive, right? That's our local El Camino bus, all right? Hotel 22, where does it fit in our structure of documentaries? This is tough. There's no dialogue. There's no interviews. Where does it fit? I agree. It is a character narrative-driven piece. Now, there's no real character in there, is there? There is. There is. The bus is sort of the character of that film. The bus and the people on that bus are sort of the character of that film. It happens over a passage of time, right? It starts as the sun goes down and ends as the sun comes up. Okay? And the bus changes over the course of time. Okay? So it's more of a narrative-driven piece. Okay? Not a 5-paragraph essay, but a narrative-driven piece. And one of the best documentaries I show in this class, in my opinion. Richard. Richard is the piano tuner. Remember the piano tuner that decides he just wants to sleep on the street and stuff? What do you think? Character-driven or 5-paragraph essay? Yeah, this one's kind of hard, I agree. This one's kind of hard. This one's kind of hard because he's a character and there's not a lot of other ideas or other interviews to create a thesis. So is there a thesis? Yeah, kind of. The thesis is I'm Richard and I'm living kind of a different kind of life, I guess, right? And then we sort of go into the different types of reasons why he chooses to live this life, right? Okay. Does he change? Does he grow? Not so much. Does it happen linearly? No, not really. So I would say it's more 5-paragraph essay, but it's such a small snippet into what could be a larger documentary that I'm not even sure I would call it a 5-paragraph essay. It's almost like just the introduction and maybe 1 paragraph or something like that, or just the introduction and just the conclusion. But I think it still fits in more of this 5-paragraph essay format. Exit through the gift shop. I know none of you all watched it. Some of you guys really need to. I hope you guys watch these documentaries as we were at home, because these are some great documentaries. If you're not, I hope you weren't just reading everyone else's comments and parroting whatever they were saying. Some of you rated these very interestingly, almost as if you didn't watch them and you were just relying upon the opinion of the person who commented before you. I hope that's not the case. If that is the case, please go back and watch these documentaries. I don't just show documentaries just because. I show these documentaries because they offer some real good insights into how to create an effective film. And quite frankly, they're just good documentaries. And if you're not interested in watching these documentaries, well, you're probably not. You probably don't really belong in a film class, quite frankly, all right? So these are great documentaries. I hope you've watched them and taken the time to enjoy them because they're really, really cool. So Exit Through the Gift Shop. I don't think too many of you actually watched Exit Through the Gift Shop, except for Evan. Thank you, Evan. Evan, tell us all, because I know you commented on it. Tell us all, where does Exit Through the Gift Shop fit on our little spectrum here? Is it character-driven or is it a 5-paragraph essay? What do you think? You are correct. You are correct. Thank you, Evan. Exit the Gift Shop is very much a narrative-driven, character-driven piece, a very wacky character indeed, and a very interesting story. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's really fun. It's really cool. We usually have great, lengthy discussions about it in class. Exit the Gift Shop. Very interesting, unique documentary, to say the least. All right, White Earth. I love White Earth. White Earth was one that was done locally by a Stanford graduate in their graduate program. A friend of mine, actually. White Earth was nominated for an Oscar. Some of you all didn't like it. I was shocked. This was nominated for an Oscar, and it didn't win, but it was a runner-up for an Oscar for short-form documentary. If you want to win an Oscar, the easiest way to do that, folks, is short-form documentary. But White Earth, this is the one about the oil town where we interviewed all the kids. I loved it so much. Because it offered us a different view of this town, different people that were affected by the oil who didn't actually work as part of the oil, but their lives were adversely affected from it just nonetheless. Very interesting, a lot of the kids and the interviews and things like that. All right, so White Earth, what kind of documentary is it? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, Kant. Arjun, what do you think? Very good. It is a 5-paragraph essay. Very good. It is a 5-paragraph essay. White Earth kind of breaks up all the different lives that are affected by the oil. There's a nice introduction. There's a nice closing conclusion. A very interesting documentary, beautiful documentary. One of my favorites. Oh, I missed one. One more. Sorry. Thank you. Yes, The Record Breaker. The Record Breaker. Justin, what do you think? Record Breaker. Have Zazie help you if you need help. Okay? Yeah? Record Breaker. Very good. The Record Breaker is a character-driven piece. It's more linear. Now, what's that? Yes, I would agree. There are also 5-paragraph elements in there, but it is really more of a character-driven piece. Think about the growth of the relationship of the record breaker and his father. Remember that? The Guinness Book of World Records guy and his dad, and how they had a falling out and they came back together. That's a really nice narrative arc, right? There was a lot of linear things going on there. We ended with the Guinness Book of World Records Day, so on and so forth. So really more of a character narrative-driven piece with a beginning, middle, and an end, more so than a 5-paragraph essay. So remember, the difference here, the thing that you want to think about is this a thesis that we're supporting with 5 paragraphs, or is this a narrative? Is this a story? Does it have a beginning, middle, and an end? Does it happen over linear time in some way? Is there a character end? Is there character growth and development? Okay? It might not have all of those elements, but generally it's think beginning, middle, end. Right? Beginning, middle, end versus 5-paragraph essay where we're supporting an idea or a thesis. So think to your documentaries. Okay? This is how we kind of structure and edit documentary film. Okay? Think about your documentaries and the content that you have. Some of you have content that is going to fit really well into the 5-paragraph essay. I would actually suggest that all of you have content that can fit in the 5-paragraph essay. This is a standard format that you can kind of fit any documentary into. Okay? Some of you, not all of you, some of you, a few of you, might have content that fits more in the beginning, middle, end, narrative, character type of documentary film. And if you do, those can be really interesting and different. Those can be unique. I would say that they might be more challenging to produce. I would say that you have to have the right kind of content in order for that to work. Right? You can't tell a linear story if you don't actually have linear content. Right? So you want to so you need to know that you have that type of documentary in the can, in production, before you start editing that kind of documentary. You can't put together that documentary if you don't actually have the content or the story to work with. Okay? So be thinking about your film. What kind of a story do you have? What kind of a documentary do you have? And you need to make that decision up front. How am I going to edit and how am I going to structure my documentary? Are you going to do it in the 5-paragraph essay format? Or are you going to do it more in the linear, beginning, middle, end, narrative type of format? They're both good. They're both effective, and they both work. We love stories, so people like this, but we also love things that fit nicely into categories, so we also like this. So they both work. They're both very, very effective, but only you know with the content that you have what type of documentary your content is going to fit into best. So your mission, ladies and gentlemen, is to take all of this new knowledge, to take all of your content, all of your footage, and to put it all together, to compile it and structure it in such a way that you have an effective documentary. Your rough cuts are due next week. We will upload them via Google Drive. We will share them with the class, and we will watch your rough cut and offer feedback and support. That's a lot of rough cuts to watch. Normally, we're only watching, 6 or 7, maybe 8 at the most, rough cuts because everyone's working in partnerships. Since we're all at home, that's not necessarily the case, so we're going to be watching a lot more documentaries. So make sure you budget some time so you have an opportunity to offer some feedback to everyone on their documentary films. Watch them as they come in, so you don't have to watch them all at once, okay? That might be helpful. And let's help each other out and give each other feedback as we are working on our documentary films. I anticipate we're going to have a huge variety in a lot of different weird ways based on the circumstances that we are limited to currently at the moment. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you come up with. I think there's going to be some cool stuff. All right. Any questions? Yes, Rye, go ahead. That's interesting. I hadn't considered that. Thank you. Anyone else? Very good. Go forth. Conquer. Edit away.